So today we're going to talk a little bit about breaks. Now, break is the separation between one half and the other half with your finger. That's pretty much what a break is. And we're going to see that this technique, through many uses, is very versatile. Not only would it allow us to do double lifts, but it's going to allow us to control cards fairly easily. And it's also going to allow us to do a lot of different individual things with a deck of cards that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So the first one we're going to talk about is the pinky break. So the pinky break looks a little bit like this. And you notice my pinky has a little bit of a separation between the top card and the rest of the deck, just like that. Now, what's different about this pinky break and the pinky break that I did when I was starting off was that when I was starting off, my pinky break looked a little bit like this. And I thought this was normal. You definitely want to avoid this. To get into pinky break, we're just going to show you a basic push-off technique. So you're going to push off the top card ever slightly to the right. You're going to push back with your pinky and push back with your thumb. So both my thumb and my pinky are pushing back a little bit. And what that's going to do is that that's going to allow the flesh of my pinky. So all that's happening is that the most minute flesh of my pinky is keeping that separation between that card and the rest of the deck. That's all that the pinky break is. My whole pinky is not in there. The only thing that's happening is that the little fatty part of my pinky, that's what's separating that top card from the rest of the deck. And of course, my thumb is putting pressure in the front, so you can't see the pinky break from the front. It doesn't even look like it's anything's different. So that is the pinky break with just a top card. Now, obviously, you're not just going to be able to do that because that's a very obvious action. So how are we going to be able to get a pinky break using that push-off technique? Well, there are different ways to cover it. One way to cover it is by showing, for example, the top card. And while you're showing the top card, that's when you do the move over here, where you're pushing over the card and pushing it back and now getting a pinky break, all by showing this card as misdirection. Another technique is a little bit more difficult, but it's a lot more discreet, and it's called the Harvey Rosenthal double. And what that is that you're going to use your thumb and your forefinger to put opposing pressure. So your thumb is in the upper left corner, your forefinger is resting on the upper edge of the deck, and what's going to happen is that your thumb is going to start pushing off this way. So my thumb is going to push against the corner like this. It's pushing against that corner. But because my forefinger is there, you notice that that creates a little bit of tension between the thumb and the forefinger. So what that tension is going to result in is this back edge lifting enough for me to be able to stick my pinky in there and have a break. This is a very challenging technique to get at first because you're going to have multiple cards. You're not going to be able to get it right. But your thumb is putting pressure against that corner, almost doing this. But because your forefinger is also putting pressure downward, all that's going to happen is that back edge is going to lift up ever so slightly, enough for you to get your pinky in there. Now, you're going to be able to do this technique with multiple cards later on, so we could get double lifts, but that's going to be a more advanced technique later. But for the first card and just a single card, it's just putting opposing pressure with those two fingers, getting that top end to buckle, and you putting your little finger in there. So that's another technique that's a little bit more discreet for getting a break on the top card of the deck. Now, sometimes you're not going to need a break on the bottom card of the deck. You're going to need a break after a selected card has been chosen. So the way we do this step, we're going to have the cards picked. We're going to have the spectator touch any card they want. Let's say they touch the 7 of spades. Now, in squaring up the deck, notice that the deck is going to be squared up against the thumb. So we're squaring up the deck against the thumb. And we're squaring everything up. We're going to stick our pinky there to keep a separation between the upper half and the lower half. Much like we talked about with one card. This time we're doing it with multiple cards, almost 26 cards there. So all that's happening, to give you the exposed view, they touch a card. Upon putting it back on top of the left hand, my pinky is pushing slightly up as I'm squaring everything up, which is going to keep a natural separation between the top half and the lower half. Why is this important? Because the top card of this lower half is going to be the spectator's card. So now we have control over this card. Very simply, what we could do now in order to get that card on top is lift up half of these cards above the break, drop them to the table, lift up everything above the break, drop it to the table, and then lift everything here and drop it to the table. What that's done is that now we've controlled their card to the top of the deck without them knowing, in the context of giving the deck a cut, all from a very simple pinky break. So one more time here, we're spreading, they put a card back. In this case, it's the King of Diamonds. As we're squaring up the deck, our pinky is pushing slightly up, which allows us to put our pinky inside there. Again, we're squaring up the deck. A hot tip here too is to put a little bit of pressure with the thumb. I'm putting downward pressure with the thumb and upward pressure with the forefinger, which is going to hide any sort of gap or noticeable situation in front. That is one hot subtlety there that you could use to make sure that you don't have any sort of obvious edges for most angles. So upon just the spectator looking at the deck, they just see a normal squared up deck. Another thing you could do to hide the break is just bringing your hand over here, grabbing the deck from the right. This hides the break from pretty much every angle. The only angle that they could see the break now is from behind you, and unless they are directly in between the deck and your body, there's no reason why they should see that break. However, just holding the deck in this fashion should be enough to hide it. Now, if we need to get a pinky break on the bottom card of the deck, there's a technique that I use very often called the buckle. This is how I get a card underneath the deck to get a pinky break. So the way we do that is that we're going to hold the deck in mechanics grip in the left hand. Now we're going to use pressure from our forefinger on the upper right corner, on the upper lower right corner. So this is the bottom card of the deck. We're putting pressure, downward pressure. What that's going to do is that is going to create a separation between the deck and the bottom card that I could put my pinky in and now establish a pinky break just by putting a little bit of pressure on the right corner. You'll notice that it buckles the edge, and that's what's going to allow us to put the pinky in there and maintain a break. Also, there are techniques called the pinky pull down, which you just pull down with your pinky, and you could take that bottom card and just get a break just like normal. But that's just as simple as getting my pinky, feeling one card, pulling it down and pulling up, and now I have a pinky break over the bottom card of the deck, which is very useful in a lot of techniques. So the next break that we're going to talk about is the thumb break. The thumb break is a very useful break to know because with that, you're able to transfer break from the pinky in the left hand to the thumb in the right hand. And the way that looks is just like this. So we have a little bit of a gap in the thumb, which is allowing a separation between the lower half and the upper half. So the way we get into this, let's say that we have a card picked. In this case, it's going to be the 9 of hearts. We've established a pinky break over this card, like we talked about previously. Now, all we have to do to get a thumb break is put our thumb on the back edge of the deck and put our fingertips at the front edge of the deck and pick it up. You notice that our thumb automatically holds the break from the pinky without doing much work. All you have to do is literally lift it up with your right hand or pick up the deck and hold the deck in your right hand, letting go of the left hand, and your thumb is going to do all the work for you. Your thumb is just going to keep that natural separation between the halves. Now, the practice that you're going to need to do is to keep your thumb maintaining that break. That's what often fails in the beginning, that your thumb is just going to drop the cards accidentally, or that you're going to think that you're going to need a bigger break. But all you're doing is just holding the deck with your right hand, and your thumb is going to keep that natural break at the back. Now, another hot tip for this one is that I'm putting pressure, downward pressure with my forefinger, and what that's going to do is that that's going to close the gap from most angles. So the only angle that's sensitive is going to be the angle in the back, and usually that's going to be covered up by your hand anyway, so you're fine for that. But this is the thumb break, and going to be one of the more useful techniques that we're going to use in the lore of Magic. So another advice is to slightly skew your thumb. So your thumb is, instead of being towards the middle of the deck, it's more towards the right edge. So what that's going to allow you to do is that that's going to have more coverage from more angles. So now you're covered from essentially here all the way up the front and even the back, because your hand's going to be blocking. So the only angle that's sensitive is going to be this small angle that you just need covered by your hand or by gesturing or by just angling the deck towards your body. Just having the thumb at the lower right edge covers the angle from a lot of visibility. Now, there are going to be a couple techniques where you're going to need to transfer a pinky break to a thumb break in the context of a cut. So that's going to be a little bit complicated at first, but it's a very rewarding and necessary move. So let's say we have a pinky break above the lower card of the deck, the bottommost card. We're going to grab it with our thumb. So we're going to pick the deck up with our thumb, which is going to naturally transfer the break. And now, because that break is held, we could use this forefinger to swing cut the packet into the left hand. So we're swing cutting half the deck into the left hand, and we're squaring up this lower half with the deck. You see what that does is that automatically, by squaring it up, that card is now here in the middle of the deck, and your thumb is maintaining a break above it, just by virtue of that cut and by virtue of squaring up the deck. So now what you could do, if you wanted to control that card to the top, is a move known as the double undercut. We're going to get into more detail for the double undercut when it comes to the control section of this lessons. But just briefly, double undercut, let's say we want to get that card from the middle to the top, whether or not it's from a spread that the spectator has just picked, and we've put the card back in there. We're going to transfer the deck to the right hand. We're going to grab half of the cards underneath the thumb break, and put them on top of the deck, just like that. And then we're going to grab all the cards from underneath the thumb break and put it on top of the deck. What that does is that brings the card to the top of the deck in the context of a cut. So the way that looks is that the spectator picks a card, in this case, once again, the 5 of hearts. We have our pinky. We put our pinky there. We transfer the deck to the right hand, which is going to naturally put a thumb break. We're going to grab half the cards underneath the break and put it on top, and then grab all the cards underneath the break and put it on top. And in that smooth action, we've controlled their card to the top of the deck in the context of giving the deck a couple cuts. So that looks like that in motion. So in the lore of Magic, there are going to be a lot of breaks that are specific on situations. So for example, here is the Erdnase break. You notice what's going on. This is hidden from this angle, but my pinky has clipped that top card between the ring finger. Let me see if I can flash it there. Between my ring finger and my pinky. And it's maintained a break between that card and the rest of the deck. That's the Erdnase break. Again, very situational break used for some tricks, but it's very useful in different contexts. Another one is a ring finger break, which looks a little bit like this. It's the same idea as a pinky break. Only difference is that I'm using my ring finger. Some people are more comfortable using the ring finger, and it does have a certain advantages, leaving your pinky open. But again, for most tricks, the pinky is going to be sufficient for what you need. A little convincer you could do when retrieving the card to the middle of the deck. So let's say the 8 of hearts is the spectator's card. They put it on the top of the left-handed half. You're squaring up the deck, maintaining that pinky break. You could riffle up the front edge of the deck, which implies that there's no control on your end, because how would you be able to do this if you had some sort of control over the card in the deck? Of course, your pinky is maintained the entire time with the break. The pinky break is being maintained the entire time. I'm just lifting up the front and riffling, much like a riffle shuffle, which just gives the illusion of freedom. So imagine you get the card back from the middle of the deck, you square it up, and then you could riffle the front edge. It's just a little bit of an illusion of freedom that you add as a subtlety. But that is just a little bit of a riffle convincer. So that is a basic lesson in breaks. Breaks are ultimately useful in pretty much every card trick you're going to need to do from now on in some capacity or another. So learning how to do a proper pinky break is essential in order to move on in Magic and move on and make sure that you are actually learning card tricks correctly. So the best advice that I could give you guys when doing a pinky break is to try to keep it as small as possible. Same thing with the thumb break. Try to keep it as minute as possible. The reason for that obviously is because I'm just saying from experience, when I was younger and learning how to do the pinky break, I thought you stuck your whole pinky in there. And obviously that was visible from almost every single angle. So you want to get to the habit where your pinky break is as small as can possibly be without being any smaller. So you notice my pinky's in there, my thumb's putting pressure, and it's very well hidden from most angles. So the pinky break and the thumb break are two very useful techniques you're going to use in pretty much mostly every single card trick that you're going to run into from now on. So here's a quick trick you could do with the pinky break. You have any card picked. In this case, we'll have the 9 of spades. This card is, of course, lost in the middle of the deck forevermore, never to be seen again. And you tell the spectator you're going to use, hopefully, their psychic intuition to find a playing card. So you take out a couple cards that could be their card. You go, oh, I'm getting a feeling on this one. I'm getting a feeling on this one. Definitely getting a feeling on that one. Oh, boy. Yeah, one of these for sure is your card. But that's not up to me to decide, sir. You're going to be the one whose intuition is tested. So what I want you to do, sir, with your left hand, I want you to come in here and take any card you want. Let's say the spectator takes this card with their left hand. You go, okay, that's great. Now with your right hand, I want you to take another card. Let's say the spectator takes that card. So you go, okay, so you have 2 cards in your hand now, sir. These would have been the cards you would have picked had this would have been different. But instead, you chose to take these cards into your hand. Sir, I want you to hand me any one of those cards when I snap my fingers. And of course, you snap your fingers and a spectator hands you this card right here. You go, that's great. You could have handed me this one, which is the 3 of clubs. But instead, you handed me this one right here, which of course is your card, the 8 of spades. So for this trick, we're combining a couple of different things with that pinky break. We're combining an idea known as equivoque, however you want to pronounce it. It's basically known as magician's choice, where you make the spectator pick a certain outcome that you have already predetermined. We're going to talk about that in more detail in a different lesson. However, we're going to cover a basic technique here. So we're going to spread the cards and have the spectator touch any card they want. Let's say they touch the 8 of diamonds right there, the 8 of diamonds. We're going to square this up and get our pinky break, much the same like before. We're going to get a pinky break above the card. We could do a riffle if we want. And a little subtlety that we could do too is that we can lift up all the cards above the break and we swing cut. So we're going to do that swing cut from that first lesson on top of that selected card, all while maintaining a pinky break. So we're just swing cutting packets on top of that card while maintaining the pinky break, just like this. And then now that we've already kept that break, we could swing cut packets off on top of the deck without any worry of losing their card. So all that's happening is that I'm maintaining the break. I'm swing cutting half the cards back on top. And now I'm maintaining that break as I'm swing cutting cards on top of their card, which makes it seem like, you know, I'm cutting the deck and I'm mixing it up. But really nothing's happening in terms of their card because I still have a pinky break right above their card. So now what you're going to do is that you're going to spread through the deck all while maintaining the break. So my break is still maintained while I'm spreading the deck. And I'm just going to out-jog random cards here. So the first one, I'm going to out-jog from this half of the deck. So I'm just going to stick that card out halfway its length. Then I'm going to keep spreading and out-jog another random card. So these are just 2 cards that don't matter. Next, I'm going to spread to the break. So I'm spreading right to that pinky break. And I know this right here is their card, the 8 of diamonds, because that was the card that I maintained my break over. So I'm going to spread to that break and I'm going to out-jog their card. So their card is going to be third that I out-jog. And now I'm going to spread through and out-jog one more card. And that's going to be it. So now I'm going to strip these cards out. And their card is going to be third from the top of this little packet. So you can put the deck away. That's fine. So this next part is going to employ a technique known as equivoke or magician's choice or equivoque. And it's very easy to get done wrong. However, I'm going to hopefully show you guys a way that you could do it so it doesn't look like you're doing exactly what you're doing. But for this, we're going to need a little bit of a table. So here we are at the very hot production that is Pig Cake Studios here. And we're in the same situation as before. The spectator, their card is third. So we're going to put these cards on a table like this, and we're going to have them make a selection. Again, I did these in my hand previously, but you could do this on a table, and it's more effective. So now remember, their card is going to be here. Their card is going to be third from the face. So if you're taking these cards and you're putting them over here, their cards are there. Now, if you want, you could just simply end a trick by just running your hands over the cards, just like this yourself, and making the decision saying, oh, you know, I'm feeling something about, I don't think your card is this one. No, I'm going to eliminate that one. I'm not getting anything on this one. So I want you to look at these two, which just think of whichever one is your card. I'm going to say this one right here is your card. And that's a simple and effective and strong way you can end a trick. So again, all I'm doing there is, of course, noting where the card is. I'm eliminating all the other ones. When I get to the last two, I have the spectator just think of whichever card is their card. They're, of course, going to be thinking of this one. So then when I take this card to supposedly eliminate it, I eliminate this card, and I hit them with a little bit of a surprise in that I found the actual card they picked. So that's a simple and effective way to do it if you don't want to do this magician's choice method. However, I do like the fact that the spectator is able to find their own card. So we're going to tell the spectator to get their left hand and put it over whichever card they want. Now, if the spectator puts their left hand over this card, you're done. That's all you need to do, because now, guess what? This is their card. So you go, okay, perfect. You could have put your hand over this one. You could have put your hand over this one. You could have put your hand over this one. But no, you chose to put your hand on this one. I want you to do me a favor and turn it over. And of course, you're going to turn it over and go, oh my God, I found my own card. I'm a magician. And then you're out of business. But whatever, that's what we want to do for the art. So now, let's assume the spectator doesn't do that. And they put their left hand over here or even over here. It doesn't matter. Because now we say, okay, and with your right hand, I want you to put it on top of any other card you want. Now, let's assume the scenario where the spectator does put their hand over their own card. That's perfect. So now we go, okay, so you could have put your hands over these two, but instead you chose to put your hands over these two. Now, what I want you to do is lift up whichever hand you want. And the spectators in this situation, they're going to lift up whichever hand they want. If they lift up this hand, we take this card out and we say, okay, you could have stayed with your hand on top of any card, but instead you chose this one. If they do the exact opposite, that's just as fine. You go, perfect. Okay, so you could have lifted up any card you wanted. You could have lifted up any hand, but you chose to lift up this hand in particular. Any reason why? No. And you, of course, just dismiss this card. You turn it over, and they found a card nevertheless. So you see the little bit of a wordplay we have with the spectators. But it needs to be practiced in a way that it doesn't look like you're trying to figure out what the next step is. Everything should be seamless and smooth and should jump right into the next. So that's a situation where if the spectator puts their hand on their selected card. If the spectator doesn't put their right hand on their card, that's fine. Let's say they put their right hand over here. So now we're left in a situation where these two cards are exposed. And we cover that by saying push these cards towards you. So the spectator is going to push these cards towards you. And then now you take these cards and you put them away and you're working with these cards. So now you tell the spectator to hand you whichever card you want. Let's say they hand you this one. You go, are you sure? Do you want to change your mind? Okay, all right. You could have had any card left on the table, but instead you chose this one randomly. This card could have easily been this card had you changed your mind, but guess what? It's your card and you turn it over. If they don't do that situation, and let's say you're left with 2 cards and they hand you this one, you go, okay, great. You could have handed me any card you wanted, but instead you handed me this one. Do you want to change your mind right now? No? Okay. All right. It could have been any card whatsoever, but you handed me one card in particular. Sir, what was your card? And of course, you show the fact that you managed to, or they managed to find their own card. So that's a little basic equivoque, Magician's Choice. But you do need to practice it in a way so that you are able to come up with the scenarios as if that was the established method that you had from the beginning. You don't want to seem like you're ever fishing. You don't ever want to seem like you're thinking. You want to just jump from one to the other as if that was the established way of doing it from the beginning. So if the spectator puts their left hand here, you go, okay, perfect, and put your right hand on top of another card. Okay, perfect, now slide those cards to me. You're left with these 2 cards on the table. I want you to pick one up and give it to me. This one right here, are you sure? Okay, so you could have handed me this one, but instead you handed me this one, and that's your card. You need to practice it in a way that you're able to say it as if that's an established process that you've had from all the while. So that's a little bit of an equivoque, and that's a little bit of a cute trick you guys could do with just a pinky break and a couple bits of wordplay. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys practice it, and I hope you guys enjoyed that lesson. Thank you, guys.